Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can see that the recording and the live stream have begun, and it is 5:46, and you can begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that all of our councillors have returned. Welcome the other members of SLT. Also, an apology to our viewing public for our tardiness. Council had a previous meeting that ran a couple of minutes over the time limit. So we are now just beginning our regularly scheduled, because we have quorum, I call this meeting in session for our regular council meeting on December the 6th, 2021 at 5:46. And first up is the reading of the land acknowledgement. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the December 6th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted. However, Mr. Mayor, I do have an amendment to that agenda put forward by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Wink, that the agenda be amended to move item 17, resolution to move in camera, after item 5, adoption of minutes, and that the agenda be amended to move item 10.1, report from Councillor Hildebrandt regarding the Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee, after item 14.1, motion, re MCC parking. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
After hearing the agenda changes by the clerk, is there any discussion on these changes? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I begin this vote with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does bring us to our main motion as amended, and that would be it resolved that the agenda for the December 6th, 2021 regular meeting of council be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion on the agenda as amended? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. To you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring you to your first item on the agenda. Oh, I apologize, Mr. Mayor. This brings you to the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof.
Indeed. After viewing the agenda, is there any councillor that wishes to declare a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted. And that does bring you to your first item on the agenda, which is the 2021 Town of Pelham holiday cards. And we do have a presentation by Mr. Ryan Cook.
Excellent.
I see Mr. Cook is here with us, and he may go ahead and begin sharing his screen.
You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking the council and SLT for giving the opportunity to present the 2021 annual holiday card winners for the second year in a row, and I'd like to thank all the people that participated. Next slide. I also like to thank the legislative committee coordinator for helping me out with this. I have no idea how to use Zoom, so I have no excuse for that either at this point. Anyway, so we'll start with Haley, age 9. I think everyone can agree that penguins riding snow sleds in the mountains are quite adorable. So thank you very much for your submission, Haley.
Excellent.
Next slide. This one is from Leah, age 13. This card, it depicts a number of things that you can find in Pelham, the Pelham banner. There's the Christmas decorations that staff just installed recently. And I think there's LED streetlights up here. And if Leah tunes in and future council meetings, there might be a report on that coming up shortly. Thank you very much, Leah, age 13. This card is from Emerson, age 11. I believe the last card depicted maybe a red Mercury. I'm guessing this is international blue for trucks. Anyway, Emerson, I would suggest that you shake your tree out before you bring that inside. Once squirrels get in, they are very difficult to get out of your house. Thank you very much, Emerson. This card is from Braden, age 11. It shows Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I also have a bit of a red nose around the holidays. Might just be my complexion, I don't know, but thank you very much, Emerson, or Braden, for your card. This one is from Brooke, age 12. As a parent, this one, for some reason, tugs on my heartstrings. A couple of penguins there. It's I think it's just the red color. It's very stark. Thank you very much, Brooke. I really did like this one. This one is a really nice card. It has the fan shell in it, decorated, and there's the menorah. This card really does serve to remind everyone that not everyone celebrates the holidays in the same way. So thank you very much, Maud, for this. This is a very nice one. Lillian here is the youngest of all the winners, and I do think that Lillian has a future job prospect in graphic art. This is a very nice depiction of Frosty the Snowman. Owen's done a very nice landscape. This is very Group of Seven-esque. I think this is a beautiful landscape photo of boreal forest. I don't know. I couldn't have done this at age 10. I don't think I could have done this at age 44. Owen, this is a very nice card. Thank you very much for your submission. Elia is 8 years old. This I think this is the final card in the presentation, but this one has all of the best stuff in it. There's Frosty the Snowman, a penguin, and a Christmas tree. So thank you very much, Elia, for your card. And that's it. Yeah, congratulations to all. It's one of my favorite things to do in the course of the year, and I'm really happy that everyone participated, and we had really nice cards this year.
Excellent.
I was on.
Thank you for the commentary, and obviously we have some very exciting budding artists in the town of Pelham. Each card well done, and I'm sure that whoever picked these winners had a considerably hard time ending up with these cards from the vast majority that were submitted. So unless any counselor has any comments, we'll give them a hearty round of applause and move on. There we go. And again, thank you for the commentary. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to our next item on the agenda, and that's the COVID-19 pandemic update from Chief Lindberner.
Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council and SLT. Just a quick update on some numbers. As of today, Pelham has had a total case count of 687. We currently have 4 active cases within our town. The Niagara region had 25 new cases today for a total of 19,050. Of those, 285 are active. They have resolved 18,204 with 441 fatalities. Province-wide, we had 887 new cases today for a total of 623,499. Of those, 605,358 are resolved. And we broke the 10,000 mark threshold for fatalities. We're at 10,024. Hospital admissions are on the rise. 137 admissions, 168 in ICU, and 101 in ICU on ventilators. And I've said this before, the vast majority of these people are unvaccinated people. Countrywide, 1,809,782 total. Of those resolved, 1,750,506, and our fatalities are 29,773. Niagara Region's case doubling time is 455 days. Our positivity rate has gone down a little bit from last week to 2.4. Reproductive rate is up a bit to 1.3. Variants of concern detected in the Niagara region are 100% Delta. Our infection spread still continues to be led by close contact. Our Niagara Health Public Unit is currently working with 14 active outbreaks. Most of that's in our schools, and they've resolved 525. As far as vaccinations go in the region, 3.4% of the persons have first dose, 75.7% second dose. Province-wide, 3% first dose, 87% second dose. And across the country, 4.38% first dose and 77.12% second dose. Our provincial indicators are pretty well the same as they were last week. New cases, daily average, unknown spread, and population, 100K population are all in red. Our hospitalization, our admissions are in green, and our reproduction rate is in green, which is a good sign. Our MCC vaccination clinics are now focused on our young persons aged 5 to 11. Persons 12 years and older that are looking for their booster shot will be required to book those in at your local pharmacies. The clinics are not giving boosters at this time. They will in moving forward, but in the next little while they're going to focus on our younger people. Niagara Region issued a letter of direction to us on Friday. The main focuses are activities surrounding sporting groups involving our younger participants. A couple of the changes: dressing room capacities have been limited, and time duration before and after the activity are restricted. And that's the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Chief. I turn to council. Any questions or comments on the Chief's report? Not seen. I guess the only comment I'd like to make, Chief, as everyone knows, with the new variant out, that anyone planning to do any traveling certainly has to keep themselves up to date on the various rule changes, travel changes. Are those changes posted on a website, either at Public Health or on a federal website?
Just through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, they did actually announce a new change. Everybody coming back into the country has to have a negative test within 1 day of arrival. The best site to go to is ArriveCan. That's the site you actually have to use to get back into the country, and it gives you all the details. So it's ArriveCan.
Okay. Thank you for that information, Chief. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion?
Any discussion? Not seeing it, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That brings you to your next presentation from our CAO, Mr. David Cribbs.
Mr. Cribbs, you have the floor.
Good evening, Council. I thought this week what we'd report on are the changes at the MCC. Ms. Van Ravensway is, of course, on the call, so if you have any detailed questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them. That being said, generally speaking, the Acting Medical Officer of Health issued a directive, which is sort of a variant on an order, but it's binding at any rate, addressing youth 12 and up, and what some characterize as loopholes. I think there were just areas where the rules weren't entirely thought through, and of course reality gets in the way of the best plans. So addressing that age population who attend the facility for sporting activities. Beyond that, Pelham, like many municipalities in Niagara, has moved over to use of the QR codes. So we did install the appropriate technology, and Ms. Van Ravensway has reported to me that our very first day, we are devoting some staff time to any residents who need help accessing that newer system, that newer technology. and that we've had a number of patrons who probably couldn't quite have navigated that on their own. We've assisted them, and we've got a lot of positive feedback. So you do have some town staff helping people be able to download what they need into the cell phones. And then ultimately, of course, that has benefit to them well beyond the MCC, but just wanting to go to restaurants or any other places in society that are requiring that. So kind of taking a challenging situation, and at least from where I sit, turned it into a relatively good news story. Of course, the QR codes are also a bunch faster to process, and that's a concern, as of course, attendance at the MCC has been going on an upward trend for the last, well, since we opened actually, and it's now quite high. So with that ends the formality of my report. If you have questions, most likely Ms. Van Ravensway would answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillors, any questions or comments on the report? I'm not seeing any. I guess I'll, if I may, I'll play the devil's advocate. What happens if a senior citizen wants to use the track and doesn't have a cell phone? I mean, so what happens then?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no need to have a cell phone if you need to use the track. You can present a paper copy of your vaccination certification.
Okay.
And also we are able to, as the CAO said, we have a public computer in the atrium with a printer, and anyone is welcome to use it to download their QR code certification and print it if they don't have a cell phone, or upload it to your cell phone. So we are still accepting either certification, one with the QR code or without, and of course, your ID.
Yes, okay. No, that's excellent. Thank you for that. I was just hoping that there was the option if need be. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. Mr. Mayor, shall I call the vote?
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring you to delegations. And through you, we do have Miss Marianne Love from ML Consultings here tonight as a registered delegate. I will just ask Miss Miller to bring Marianne into the meeting from the waiting room, if council can give us a moment. Thank you, Ms. Love. You are part of the meeting now. I would like to remind the presenter that delegations are limited to 10 minutes. In that regard, I'll have a timer set up, and at 8 minutes, I'll ring a bell. And at 10 minutes, I will ring the bell again to let you know that your time has come up. Otherwise, Ms. Love, to you.
Ms. Love, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I'm really here to speak to the staff report that's included in your agenda, and it's relating to the matter of the CAO performance review policy. There's a policy attached, and also there are forms attached to that report as well. And I was asked to take a look at the documents that were collected by Human Resources, and they related to other performance review forms that were used in other organizations. Specifically, I was asked to take a look at the templates that were provided from the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association, the International City Council Management Association, and Niagara region. When I looked at those documents, I think the thing that was the most profound was the fact that one of those documents used, and it was the international organization, was using in my view anyway, a very good table that set out CIO goals and key result areas. And so my recommendation was to bring that forward and should be used in all documents. And then we're sort of left with, what competency descriptor would be best. And I'm suggesting that council may want to put its mind to using the competency descriptor that's in the OMAA document. It's a bit, I think, it's a bit easier to use, perhaps a bit more simplified format. And I think it would be a very good first step. Now, having said that, I don't think there's any wrong answer here. I think the most important thing is that council is stepping forward and going to embrace a policy and put forward and use a CIO performance review document to be able to work through the performance appraisal process. And typically we start with a document and we refine that over time. So once we work through a performance cycle, we'll determine, council can determine whether the format is working or it's not working and refine that tool for the next cycle. So I think the staff report is putting forward a particular option. I'm in support of that, and for the purposes that I brought forward, goal-centric, referencing competencies and an ease of use. And that basically sets out my presentation in less than 10 minutes. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Love, for that detailed presentation. Councillor Wink, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. One thing I find a little unusual is the CAO's anniversary date is in July, and we're looking at making comments on priorities and goals that are for the entire year. Is it typical for municipalities to have the review done on the anniversary date, or would it be more appropriate to be done at the completion of the year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I've seen it both ways, and it's really a preference. And certainly there is a benefit to aligning with the organization's fiscal, but I've also seen it work quite well on the anniversary date, and there's a reflection on the performance over the fiscal period. So it's really up to council in terms of how they want to move forward. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I've seen it both ways, and it's whatever works best for Pelham. All right. And I'm not able to answer, and perhaps your CAO can, whether or not the employees are on anniversary date cycle or aligned with your business fiscal. And you might ask that question perhaps through you, if I can, through you, your worship, over to the CAO. I think that would also have a bearing.
Mr. CAO?
In fact, this week I'm doing the performance evaluations of the directors and senior staff. So most others are done at the end of the year.
Councillor Wink?
Yes, so just for clarification, so you're doing the SLT at the end of the year based on the goals that were given to them, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And there was one other question coming from an organization that implemented reviews, semi-annual reviews and annual reviews. What we did in my former employer was provide the document to the employee. The employee filled out the document first, and then the manager would complete their assessment. Is that a preferable way of doing it, or should the council do the review first and then have the CAO make comment?
Ms. Love?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think it's always preferable to have the individual that's being reviewed undertake a point of self-reflection based on the the goals and the competencies that are expected. And that's contemplated in the policy document. I read that again. So I expect that's perhaps the way it's handled with staff as well. But again, you could ask your CIO, but that is a best practice. The idea of a performance meeting is to have robust discussion, honest and open discussion. And I think the only way that can happen is by both parties putting their minds to the task at hand.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. CEO, you want to comment on that last about how you conduct SLT?
It works the same way. Well, in fact, that is our model already at this point in time. I self-assess and then it's handed over to council. I would agree with Ms. Love's assessment. I think it has to be the person being assessed has to go first, and then the manager, or in this case, the council, goes second. I see no other way for that to work.
Okay, thank you for those words. Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the policies, the sort of the final building block for what is developing into a really wonderful way of selecting the best and retaining the best people. And you can see it with our succession plan and so on. I like the idea of preparing your own self-assessment. I was wondering about if your direct reports could prepare theirs as well of you. Would that be an acceptable thing? Because I did that frequently. That was sort of the practice in the automotive industry.
Any comment on that, Ms. Love?
Oh, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. That would be more along the lines of a 360 assessment, which would need to be managed, if it's to be managed well, by a third party. So that, that information is then pulled in. And then the third party would be putting the results together and then working with the reviewer to bring all comments together. So other than that, it becomes very difficult moving it up through the CIO, for example, in this situation, or not through council. So it can happen, but there's a mechanic that needs to go around that, a methodology that needs to surround that to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Councillor?
Yes, thank you for that. I can see the difficulties and understand them, but we were in a different situation, and I don't propose to add any more costs. So I'm quite happy with the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments on the presentation? Not seeing any. Ms. Love, we thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a very good meeting, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And we will turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive the delegation from Marianne Love, ML Consulting, regarding the CAO performance review for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any further discussion?
Any further discussion on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next delegation, and this is the United Way Niagara and Niagara Community Garden Networks. And I would just ask Ms. Miller to bring in the two presenters. And we do have Frances Hallworth and Aaron Reising coming to join us. I do see that we have both of our presenters. I would just like to remind the presenters that delegations are limited to 10 minutes. And in that regard, I will be timing the presentation, and at 8 minutes, I will ring the bell, and at 10 minutes, I will ring the bell 2 more times, and that will let you know to wrap it up. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're ready for your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Junkin, council members and staff. My name is Frances Hallworth, and I'm the Executive Director of United Way Niagara. And my co-presenter, Aaron Rising, the Program Manager of the Niagara Community Garden Network. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to present about community gardens. This summer, we sent representatives at each of Niagara's municipalities a published position statement. The statement focuses on increasing barrier-free access to food security through community gardens and the role of Niagara Region municipalities in advancing policy and reducing barriers. This was endorsed by the Niagara Food Security Network, the Niagara Poverty Reduction Network, and the Niagara Region Public Health and Emergency Services. Today, we are here to follow up on the statement. For decades, United Way has been investing in a number of food security solutions. Our focus areas include funding a broad range of food programs, facilitating the Food Security Network, composed of more than 100 individuals and community organizations across Niagara. In Pelham, we work alongside food security partners such as Pelham Cares, school nutrition programs, meal programs, and faith groups. Most recently, we became the home for the Niagara Community Garden Network, funding the delivery of community gardens, their programs, and advocacy work. United Way firmly believes that community gardens represent one of the long-term sustainable solutions to food security in our community. I would like to invite Erin from United Way to share with you the why and the how.
Thank you, Francis, and thank you so much to everyone for allowing us to join you today to advocate on behalf of and gain your partnership in support of community gardens in Pelham. Our Niagara Community Garden Network is a collaborative network of food security leaders and residents working together to build thriving community gardens. Our mandate is to help provide our communities access to affordable, healthy food and the resources to grow their skills and engage their community through gardening. We believe everyone deserves to easily access nutritious and affordable, healthy food. Collectively, we have over 40 organizations and groups offering more than 1,200 garden plots to individuals, families, and organizations across Niagara. In our gardens, we see that growing and sharing food transforms communities and addresses a broad range of environmental, health, and social issues. They are vital outdoor hubs where people can come together, grow and learn, share stories, recipes, food, culture, and connect with each other in their broader community. For anyone unfamiliar, community gardens are essentially land that is gardened collectively by a group of people on either public or private land. Gardeners grow a variety of vegetables, herbs, fruit, and flowers in individually or shared plots, often with common goals such as building community, beautifying neighborhoods, improving food security, or as educational or therapeutic spaces. Community gardens are central to so many aspects of community life because food and food systems are. A growing number of local governments in Canada have identified community gardens as a way to help them create healthier, sustainable, and more resilient communities. Community gardens promote healthy, inclusive neighborhoods, offer physical and mental health and well-being, offer unique opportunities for education and skill development, provide economic relief to gardeners, build improved social connectedness, community, and sense of purpose, offer environmental benefits such as decreased greenhouse gas emissions, raised environmental awareness, waste reduction, and overall improve nutrition and food security with better access to healthy, affordable, locally grown food, which is especially important now in low-income neighborhoods with poor access to healthy fruits and vegetables. Just a note about food security in Niagara. Food security is a basic human right, yet almost 60,000 people in Niagara are food insecure, experiencing limited access to nutritious, affordable, and culturally appropriate food. The Government of Canada states income-related food security is an important public health issue in Canada and a key social determinant of health. Community gardens act as a promising strategy to decrease food insecurity because of their ability to provide access to nutritious food, often serving our most marginalized and vulnerable populations in Niagara. The importance of these impacts increases in times of uncertainty. The social and economic impacts of COVID-19, along with climate change and the rising costs of food, make community gardens an effective part of a range of strategies to build greater resilience and stability in our communities. A community garden that is led by the community it serves and supported by local government is more likely to meet its unique needs and be successful in the long term. This requires collaborative partnerships between local governments, residents, and community groups. And just a brief note about where we fit in our community garden network. We are a mutual support network, and we provide ongoing support to residents, volunteers, and community garden coordinators. We facilitate this group to come together regularly to collaborate, share resources, learn from, and support one another. Together, we're stronger and we can better achieve our goals to build stronger communities, promote food security, reduce the effects of poverty, and expand our collective impact in Niagara. We partner with Niagara Region Public Health and Niagara Regional Housing to advance food security and access. We believe that by working across sectors, we can create significant change for vulnerable people and strengthen our food security system. Local government policies can indicate a range of commitments to community gardens, from high-level resolutions that support gardens in principle to specific policies which designate land for gardens and allocate resources to gardens. Community gardens can be integrated into many types of planning processes, including land use bylaws, park master planning, healthy living strategies, sustainability resolutions, climate action strategies, and neighborhood plans. Currently, many of Niagara's municipalities do not have written community garden policies. Local governments do have a significant role to play in the process by removing policy barriers, enacting supportive policies, providing support related to water access, land tenure, and composting, by signaling their support of community gardens in government communications, and by dedicating staff time to interact with community gardening groups. Now is the time to act. Niagara's municipalities can create policies that empower citizens and provide them with barrier-free access to food through community gardens. The best practices and policies we encourage and recommend Niagara municipalities to develop specifically relate to land use and access. Community gardens require suitable spaces that are publicly accessible with access to water and on transportation routes. Waiving or reducing fees or providing a stipend as a result of fees imposed by the municipality for things such as water. Insurance, providing options for holding certificates of insurance. Entering into a land use agreement with municipalities requires considerations around liability, which can be a significant barrier for resident-led initiatives. Many local governments are covering gardens under their own Parks Department insurance, which we consider best practice at this point. For example, City of St. Catharines, along with numerous other municipalities in Ontario, have recently moved to include coverage under their own Parks Department, which has removed a huge barrier to resident-led projects. And a commitment to community gardens with reasonable annual investment. Municipalities can support gardens through allocating funding in their annual budget for capital expenses related to new garden development or supporting existing gardens for things such as repairs and expansion. And then last but not least, ongoing program evaluation and development. We seek to establish a working relationship with municipal staff to effectively support residents in these projects and for ongoing evaluation and development of resources. For anyone interested, this is just the sample annual investment for the City of St. Catharines for community garden projects. And I believe everyone has a copy of the presentation slides. So this is an opportunity for Niagara to come together to advance food security and food justice through community gardens. The Niagara Community Garden Network and United Way Niagara, in partnership with the Niagara Food Security Network, would be delighted to provide support and work with staff to transition to inclusive, barrier-free approaches. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for the presentation, ladies. Very worthwhile endeavor, I would think. I guess before I turn it to council, do you have any idea how many community gardens you had on the go last year? Francis?
Oh, sorry, you're asking us?
Yes.
Yes, we have over, I think we're close to 75 different locations in Niagara. In total, and some of those are sort of publicly accessible gardens, and some are on, like they're from an organization for their own client use. So for example, Bethesda would use it for their own clients. So
Okay.
there's various social service agencies that use it for their own internal use.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, I will now open the, to any questions or comments from any councillors on this presentation. And I see Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. 60,000 people with food shortage in Niagara region. That's quite a number. Is that number growing, and how fast is it growing? Do you have any figures on that?
Erin, do you want me to answer that one?
Sure, if you have trending data, that would be.
No, so we don't have recent numbers, but what we can tell you is many food banks are experiencing increases in the number of people that are visiting them.
And
Yeah.
the order of magnitude is like 20%, I think it is, what my reading has been.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. I guess, ladies, what would be the first step? Although I must say we had a budget meeting a week or 2 weeks ago, perhaps, and we actually this council turned down the concept of community gardens. Do you have, other than this presentation, do you, if there's anyone in town that wants to join with your network, have you got a, would it just be through a local United Way office to get a hold of the people in charge?
I can leave my email directly in the chat for anyone interested in reaching out, and I would be happy to work with any organizations or anyone within Pelham who might be interested in establishing a garden. We do have a bit of a budget that we can help support projects and then provide ongoing support. And I understand that 2022 has been designated the year of the garden, so it would be a nice thing to see. Just a side note, I also have worked with Pelham Library to help them get set up with a seed library. So hopefully there's opportunities to continue to collaborate and work together with the town.
Excellent. Okay, Councillor Olson?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I thought that the seed library was a real innovative step. I thought that was pretty, for our library to do that I thought that was excellent, but this was a really an innovative thing that you've done there. So I wondered what the source of that was.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments before we move on? Again, ladies, we thank you for your presentation, and good luck in the coming growing season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that council received the delegation from the United Way Niagara Community Garden Network regarding increasing barrier-free access to food security through community gardens for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any debate.
Okay, any other further discussions on the presentation? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of minutes, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1. Regular Council 19/2021, Regular Council Meeting November 15, 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, to call for any errors or omissions.
Okay. Any error or omissions on this minutes put forward? Councillor? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the agenda has been amended to go into closed session now. I will just let our viewing audience at home know that when we do go live, if you are a subscriber, you will get notification of the Town of Pelham's YouTube channel going live again, just so that everybody knows that. And I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, one item. And E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality. F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on or on the behalf of the municipality or local board for one item. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Yes. Any discussion on the items mentioned by the clerk? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. If council can give me a moment to turn off the streaming and the recording.
Yep, of course.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do see that our streaming and our recording is back up, and therefore I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that council adjourn the in-camera session and council do now rise with report. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any debate.
Any questions, comments, debate on this motion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That carries. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the Chief Administrative Officer be and is hereby authorized to undertake the actions directed and provided in the in-camera meeting of December 6th, 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion.
Any discussion? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
The vote begins with Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Councillor Kaur,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That does carry. Through you, Mr. Mayor, this does bring us to item 7 on our agenda. As council is aware, councilors may request to lift an item on the consent agenda if they wish to amend the resolution presented. If councilors simply wish to just comment on the item, they're not required to lift the item. Members of council, are there any items to be lifted?
Okay, after hearing the clerk, is there any items to be lifted? Councillor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, 8.3.1, the financial statements.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wink, I thought I saw your hand.
Yes. 8.5.3, OHIP eye care correspondence.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Hildebrand?
Lifting Article 8.5.2.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Any other items to be lifted? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have noted 8.3.1, 8.5.3, and 8.5.2, and that's from Councillor Olson, Wink, and Hildebrandt. So those have been lifted, and we will consider those separately. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council has any other comments, now would be the time to speak on comments for ease of discussion. As the mayor has requested, we will do that by category. So the first category for discussion would be staff reports for information or action.
Any comments on those items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. The next would be the action correspondence.
Okay. Any comments on those items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
The next is the information correspondence.
Okay. Any comment on those items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And then the last is the committee advisory committee minutes.
Okay. And any comments on those items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Then we do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the December 6, 2021 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein be contained be approved, save and accept item 8.3.1, 8.5.3, and then 8.5.2. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion?
Okay. Any discussion on these items? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That does bring you to your lifted items on the agenda. The first item lifted was 8.3.1 from Councillor Olson, and for the record, I will read that into the information. So the resolution attached is be it resolved that council receive report 2021-0201, September 2021 financial report for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Olson, you pulled the item. The floor is yours.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess any discussion of the financial statements and the position of the town they have to ask the question about the cost recovery for the use of the MCC. We provided a safe, accessible, and quite an excellent service, really. And I think it's a realistic expectation that we should be able to recover that money. I don't know how realistic it is in the minds of the people that have to give us the money, but perhaps if the treasurer might enlighten us on what the process is now.
Thank you for that question, Councillor, and I will turn to the Director of Finance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to the reimbursement of the vaccination clinics, right now we're in the process of looking into how we can be reimbursed. I have contacted the Ministry of Health to understand the eligibility for the reimbursement for facilities that are providing the space for the vaccination clinics. And according to the Ministry of Health, as long as we have a memorandum of understanding or a service agreement with the public health, with the Niagara region, then we are entitled for reimbursement. So I'm just in the process of working with the Niagara region as far as obtaining that reimbursement.
Thank you for that. Ms. Quinlan Murphy, Councillor Olson?
And yes, thank you for that. So there is some basis for our claim and some promise that we're going to get it. That's good to hear. I was going through the water budget a little bit today and wondering about, I asked Mr. Cook about the leakage we have in our water system, and I was surprised to find out it's something that approaches something close to 20%. I was looking for something in the neighborhood of 10%, and I don't blame the water department or anything like that, but it's for future reference. We should be paying closer attention to our capital spending on the water system, because it looks to me like there's quite a bit of leakage is probably the best word to describe it as far as money is. If Mr. Cook is there or Mr. Marr, perhaps they could comment on that.
We'll first turn to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, every system usually has a percentage of water that's lost to leakage. Pelham's not an exception. Mr. Cook, I believe, provided comments on this earlier today, and the percentages do get up into the teens. In Pelham, we're actually really fortunate to be in the low teens with our water loss. But this also incorporates any fire flow, flushing of the mains. That water is all incorporated into that loss as well. So it's not all leaks, but you know, there is other activities that contribute to the amount of water that's lost for non-consumption.
Thank you for that. Mr. Marr, Councilor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I was looking at what best practice would be, and it appears to be like 10%. And but I only raise that as a comment of what could be a savings for us by and a justification for changing for fixing the water mains and putting in more modern infrastructure. And this next question, Mr. Marr, is we're at the start of the winter season. It was suggested to me that there was a balance at one time or there's a balance of savings in the winter protection program, the winter road program. Have we collected all of the? Do we have all the bills in yet for, say, salt and sand and the fluids for the roads?
Back to you, Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Through Mr. Mayor, we believe we have enough materials on hand to be able to get us through the rest of the calendar year. So we budget based on the calendar year, but as you know, the winter seasons run into the following year by the time the operations are done. So yeah, if there's a surplus right now, we're expecting that we would have enough materials on hand to be able to support the operations through the rest of the calendar year.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Olson?
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Do we turn to the clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is Councillor Olson then satisfied with the resolution presented to receive for information?
And actually, I probably had a mistake there. I should have opened that out to the rest of council to see if there was any other questions, and I apologize for that. Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you. Yes, I'd like to provide a little answer with regards to the cost of the vaccination clinics at the MCC. Because of the data that we collect on a 15-minute basis on the hydro reports, when you looked at the utility report, the last chart, I can tell you accurately exactly how much hydro we use to support the vaccination clinics. And I'm going to be putting together that data. And with the monthly rates, we'll be able to assign a rate to it. So we know what those vaccinations cost in terms of hydro usage. And with regards to 8.3.1, this is a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Public Works Director. Could you give me an update on the capital project for Pelham Street with regards to the reconstruction, the schedule, and the auxiliary roads like John Street and Vera, what the plan is for completing all the work on the sides?
Yeah, to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Through Mr. Mayor, so Pelham Street reconstruction project is proceeding on schedule. It is slated to be opened up basically to the public in full capacity by the end of the calendar year. The base asphalt recently went down on the second phase of their project, so that's been completed now. I know the crews are now working towards completing sidewalk on both the east and west side of Pelham Street, as well as preparing the driveway aprons and sections of driveway that we needed to reconstruct due to the grades for the sidewalk. So the sidewalk will be completed within the next 2 weeks, as well as all the driveway restoration work will be completed in the next couple weeks.
Counselor?
And the work that has to be completed on Vera and John Street?
So the Pelham Street reconstruction basically included a portion of John Street and Vera Street, but the project does not, the project scope does not include the reconstruction of Vera and John. So with respect to the full urbanization and reconstruction of those streets down to Stella, those are going to be considered as a future capital project, not part of the scope of this work. There is some restoration work that needs to be completed in John and Vera as part of this project. The crews are going to be working to get that completed to the best of their ability by the end of this year. Obviously, the landscaping work and final cleanup will be completed in the spring of 2022.
Thank you.
Counselor? That's it, Counselor?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other counselor have any comments or questions on the 8.3.1? Back to you, Counselor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Public Works. I was looking at, where is it here? Vehicle 0421 landscape tractor, replacing a 2000 Kubota. Our budget was $60,000, and the actual was $46,000. Is there more to come? I guess there isn't. I guess it says complete. There's no more to come with that, eh?
Director of Public Works, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Without having the details in front of me, I can't answer specifically, but my guess is there would be a cost savings on that project. Those are the finals.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? 8.3.1. Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. As indicated, the motion attached to that was to receive for information. Counselor Olson, are you satisfied with that?
Yes, yes, I am. Thank you.
I will use the same mover and seconder for the consent agenda then. So that would be for Counselor Stewart is the mover and the seconder is Counselor Wink. And again, that is to receive the report for information. And unless there's any other discussion, I would call the vote. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Clerk, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And this vote begins with Counselor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Counselor Kaur.
Yes.
Counselor Olson.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Wink.
Yes.
Counselor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. That brings you to your next item that was lifted, which is item 8.5.2, which was lifted from Counselor Hildebrandt. And I will just read the attached motion into the record. It is, be it resolved that council receive correspondence dated November 17, 2021 from Reimbursement Consultants, Inc. regarding hoop houses for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, and to you, Councilor Hildebrand, you pulled the item. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to add an amendment to the motion. The amendment is and that the material be referred to town planning staff to review and report back to council.
Okay, Councilor, and we need a seconder, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
And we need a seconder, and I see Councilor Hahn is the seconder.
To you, Mr. Mayor, if you wish to discuss further.
Yes. Any other comments, Councilor Hildebrand, on that item?
No, I've had a discussion with the growers and also with Mr. Rietma, who's an engineer and a planner and a city councilor in Barrie. And we just wanted, I know we've reviewed this a few times. We just like one more review.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the Mr. CAO. Any comment on this motion before us?
Well, Your Worship, Councillor Kaur, I think you may
I'm
not
sorry.
be able to see if he has his hand up.
Okay, sorry, Councillor, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk. Would that put me into a conflict of interest? Originally, it was just receiving information. Now we're voting on something about that, and I declared a conflict of interest previously.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am unable to provide the guidance and information on whether or not you do have a conflict of interest. The proposal being proposed, or the amendment being proposed, is to refer the materials back just to receive a report back. It is up to council and councillors if they wish to declare any conflicts of interest. Again, the amendment is just to request a report back.
On the safe side, I will declare a conflict of interest.
Thank you. I will so note that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cork. Any other comments on this? I guess, Mr. CAO, we did go back to you. Any comments on this?
Staff are capable of providing a subsequent report. It's likely to be legal advice. If it's planning, we'll do it in open, and if it's legal advice, we'll provide that to you in closed. My gut instinct, without having seen exactly what our corporate response to you, council, will be, is that will determine how we respond, we comply. But we will, of course, draft a report if that's what passes. So happy to do so. You recall that we did so back in June, but this is a slightly evolved question, and so we're happy to address that.
No, okay, thank you.
Of course, I think that'll take us, well, right now we have the budget. In January, we also have transit and the library popping up. So late March probably seems a safe time, realistically, to provide this work product, if that's acceptable into council.
Okay, Ms. Weens, do you agree with the CAO on the timetable?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, I would think that would be reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if I may ask the question of you, Ms. Weens, as Mr. CEO stated, we did have a staff report back in June. I do know, however, I was talking to a couple of greenhouse growers that you and your staff have been talking to a consultant that they have hired. I guess I'm just asking you to confirm that staff have been talking with this gentleman, and I think that is the reason why Councillor Hildebrand and others might want to see if there has been any new information brought to you and your staff. I guess just a simple yes or no, or you'll obviously put that in the report. Any comments on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had one very brief conversation with Mr. Riepma probably about a month and a half or 2 months ago, and that's been the extent of any conversations or discussions that staff have had.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for clarity as well, I do see that Councillor Corr has vacated the meeting electronically because he has declared a conflict, so I'm just noting that in the record. And this is for the amendment, and it's brought forward by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn, and the vote would begin with Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. That brings you to the motion as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further debate.
Okay, any other debate or questions? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this will also be moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn. And I'll start the vote again with Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your last item, which was lifted, which is 8.5.3. And this was lifted by Councillor Wink.
Okay, Councillor, you have the floor.
Yes, so before I get too far into this, I will state that my son is an optometrist. I'm not going to declare a pecuniary interest because he is an optometrist working in a laser clinic. They do not bill OHIP for any of eye examinations for people over 65 or children. That's not the type of business they're in, so he has no financial interest in this motion. So just laying it out there for the record.
Thank you.
So just some comments with respect to this. So optometrists can only bill OHIP for children and seniors over 65, regardless if employee benefits are available. It's been well documented that a lot of the cost of providing eye care for the seniors and children are being subsidized by the optometrists. On September 1st, optometrists took action and withdrew OHIP services. But recently, the government and optometrists have gone back to the bargaining table, but no resolution has taken place. The motions by the town of Oakville and the municipality of Leamington do a really good job on explaining the problems here, and I'm not going to regurgitate what's in those motions, but I will state that children whose lifetime ability to learn and develop depends on good vision, and to the elderly who are at the greatest risk for vision-threatening ocular diseases require the essential services of Ontario optometrists. And we have to encourage the government to resolve the differences with the optometrists. I'd like to amend the motion to include, and that the Council for the Corporation of the Town of Pelham endorse and supports the resolution from the municipality of Leamington and Town of Oakville regarding OHIP eye care, and that the town clerk is hereby directed to circulate a copy of this resolution to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Christine Elliott, Minister of Health, MP Dean Allison, MPP Sam Osterhoff, and the Niagara area clerks.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Wink. We need a seconder, I believe.
That's correct.
Is there a seconder? And I see Councillor Stewart has had her hand up first. Thank you, Councillor. And now debate on this motion. Any comments or questions on the motion we just put forward? Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Everything that Councillor Wink said is absolutely true. And part of the problem is because the optometrists bill OHIP for these services. I'm senior, and if I, was due to have an eye exam during that time where they had withdrawn services, I was unable to access those services because if it's a service that they bill OHIP for, they are not allowed to bill a patient for that service. So even if I went in with money in hand and said, I need my eye exam, here's the money, they cannot do it. So we absolutely need to support the motion that Councillor Wink has put forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So this is for the amendment. And as there's no other debate, I will begin this vote with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to the main motion as amended.
Okay, any comment on the motion as amended? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I will use the same mover and seconder, being Councillor Wink and Councillor Stewart, and the vote will again begin with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda. We are now into staff reports, and we have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0192, detailed design of Quaker Road reconstruction between Pelham Street and Line Avenue for information, and that Council approve and award the engineering assignment to complete the detailed design of Quaker Road between Pelham Street and Line Avenue to MTE Consultant in the amount of $39,550 plus HST, and that Council provide approval for capital project RD 06-22 in the amount of $50,000 to be funded the engineer assignment for MTE Consultants in advance of the 2022 capital budget approval. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussions.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any discussion, comments on this item, 10.2.1? Councillor Wink.
So thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Welland has 800 meters of road and Pelham has 400 meters of road, yet Pelham's cost to complete this project is quite a bit higher than what Welland is, and we're only half the length. Is the reason Pelham costs are higher than Welland's because our section of road will be fully urbanized and Welland's will not be urbanized? Is that a fair assumption?
To you, Director of Public Works, Director Marr.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To be honest with you, I haven't done the analysis on Welland's portion, but I can tell you that with Pelham's section of road, right now it is a semi-urban cross-section which does have roadside ditches and no storm sewers. So we are looking at a full reconstruction and urbanization, which will include new stormwater systems, new stormwater management, new water main. Will include pedestrian sidewalks and curb and gutter. So we are doing a full reconstruction and urbanization on our section of road.
Councillor Wink.
Yeah, it's just curious. The last attachment showed the detailed amount of construction, and it did indicate that Pelham's cost of this project is higher than Welland's cost, and I was just inquiring why that is.
Perhaps the director can do a little research and let council know on that result.
Mr. Mayor, yes, I can look into Welland's scope of work as well and find out what they're actually completing. I do know that we did do a review of the work that we are completing in our section of road and is in line with industry standards for pricing. So,
okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wink, is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Hahn.
Yes, through the Mayor to Director Marr. With sidewalks, are there sidewalks on both the south and north side or just one side of the road?
To the director, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the cost estimate right now is including sidewalks on both the north and south side of Quaker Road. Again, that'll be determined as we go through the detailed design phase to see if we actually do incorporate sidewalks on both sides of the road. But right now, the costing does include both sides.
Okay, thank you. Because an awful lot of people are walking there and kids as well coming to and from school, and the huge ditches and traffic is not slow in that section. So for safety, I'd like to see it on both sides if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, and we have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-196, Recommendation for Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application for 1522 Pelham Street, AM-10-2020 for information, and that council direct planning staff to prepare the zoning bylaw amendment for consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, Director Weens did have a comment she'd like to make prior to discussion beginning.
Okay, thank you. To the Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do want to apologize. There is a mistake in the report, and so I do want to correct that. The report indicates that the proposal is for a 21-unit apartment building. It is actually 19 units, so it is somewhat smaller in terms of number of units than what the report indicated. That also has an implication with respect to the parking requirements. So under our current zoning bylaw for residential, which is 1.5 spaces per unit, and the commercial component, this development would require 31.5 parking spaces when we round up to 32. The applicant is proposing 31. So I just wanted to make that clear, and that there was that error in the report. And so when council is considering this report, it should be on the basis of it being a 19-unit apartment building versus a 21, and the corresponding revision to the parking requirements. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that information. And to council, any comments or questions on this? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the planning director. Is the 4 stories, does that account for the elevator that they're using in the building?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, there is a elevator shaft that's often referred to as a mechanical shaft, and our zoning bylaw does not include the elevator shaft as part of the height requirement. Excuse me there. So no, the elevator shaft, that is the mechanical structure at the top of the roof, is not part of the height.
Thank
So
you.
is the structure that's being allowed just the size of the mechanical shaft, not some other large unit to provide other services?
Mr. Mayor, through you, it's just the mechanical shaft for the elevator. That's correct.
Nothing else?
That's my understanding, yes. And you can see from the elevation plans that there is no other, protrusion on the roof line.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, so with regards to the rooftop patio, so they've stepped it back and made a rooftop patio. Is that a rooftop patio then for all the tenants to use, or just certain people on a certain level, or how does that work? What's the proposal there?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, my understanding is that it would be a common rooftop patio for all the tenants.
And also a question, is this going to be for rentals, or they have to be for purchased, these units? Are they for purchase or rental?
Ms. Weens?
Mr. Mayor, through you, my understanding is that the building will be a condominium building. And so the units can be purchased. But if somebody were to purchase that as an investment and rent out the unit to a tenant, that would be allowed. But it is my understanding is going to be a condominium building with the individual units purchased.
And I read somewhere, I think in the document, that it's not going to be like affordable homes. There's nothing, there's no allotment, I guess, for any of them to be affordable as far as the definition of affordable homes. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. There are a variety of 1 and 2 bedroom unit sizes. And so there will be a variety of price points, but I don't believe it'll meet the affordability criteria.
Okay, and one last quick question. So with the new number that you just provided, the 19 units versus 21, and then there's a requirement of 32 stalls, but they're proposing 31. Is there a reason why they're shorting 1 stall? And because there's already in that area, when there's going to be a lot of people visiting and that kind of thing, Street parking's at a minimum, so I'm just concerned about the parking, and they're shorting us a stall as well. So is there some explanation on that, please?
Mr. Mayor, through you. So you'll see that, towards the rear yard, there is a bit of a buffer there. It's about 6.2 meters in area. In theory, they could provide additional parking back there, but there is a species at risk on the town-owned lands at the back of this property that they have to provide the buffer. And that includes the 6.2 meter setback there. So they're not able to encroach in that area with parking. And based on their site layout, they can only get the 31 spaces on the site.
So those are all at the back versus nothing underground then?
No, that's correct. There's no parking underground.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Wink, did I see your hand? Go ahead, Councillor Wink.
Yeah, nothing urgent, but was the original application of 1518 Pelham Street 3 stories or 4 stories?
To the director.
Mr. Mayor, through you, that original application predates my time here at the town, so I can't say if it was originally 3 or 4. I know what was approved is a 3-story building, but I don't know what was initially applied for, if it was any different.
So looking at the sketches, thanks for that explanation. Looking at the sketches, it appears that 1518 with 3 stories is higher than the 3-story portion of this building. Do you know the height of 1518?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I would have to pull the plans for that to confirm the height, and I can provide that information to council. I believe that one of the reasons why it's higher is the floor to ceiling height on each floor is higher. And so that makes the building higher. I think there are 10-foot ceilings in the units on the 2nd and 3rd floor. But I would have to pull the file and look at the plans to confirm the height and get that back to you.
Councillor?
If you would.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This vote begins with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. Mr. Mayor, that brings you to your next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0200 Overpass, Underpass, or Tunnel Crossing over Steve Bauer Trail for information, and that Council allow an exemption to its motion restricting road crossings over the Steve Bauer Trail by adopting option number 1 detailed in Report number 2021-0168, which contemplates one at-grade road crossing with pedestrian access over Steve Bauer Trail to connect the proposed Kunda Park Phase 4 subdivision and the proposed Forest Park subdivision, and that Council directs staff to prepare the bylaw to dedicate the area of the Steve Bauer Trail for proposed crossing as a public road allowance for Council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any discussions, questions on this item? And I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor, thank the staff for looking at the possibility of overpass or underpass of the trail, and while the concept in theory, or not in theory, but in concept was worth considering in practicality. It obviously is not. I will not be supporting this motion. I will not support the crossing of the Steve Bauer Trail. As the last time that this was presented to us, not 100% in favor of going across the wetlands. There is an opportunity to cross the wetlands as an option to put a road in. Yes, it will have some initial intervention on the wetlands, but once the bridge and the culverts are in, I don't think it will be that much of a concern. The developer has always said that he has ministry approval to do it. At some point in time, we have to move forward with this development, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the most viable option that we can look at.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand, I believe you had your hand.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with the comments that my fellow councillor says. The town owns the trail. To me, the trail deserves the rights of being a heritage property. That's the value I place on it. I will never give away a piece of property to a developer to further his development. The value of this trail is immense to the community. The fact that the developer says he's going to pave over the wetlands, to me, is another thing that I do not support. I think the option of placing a bridge, a low-level bridge over the wetlands, is the solution that I would prefer. But the motion only regards the Steve Bauer Trail at this time, and I will not be supporting crossing the Steve Bauer Trail or any other trail in the town of Pelham. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hildebrand. Councillor Olson.
Yeah, yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I had hoped that there would be a solution arise out of the last suggestion of a bridge over the trail. I'd hope for some option to come forward, but I'm convinced that trail crossing and that road there, that whole property there is vital to our town. It's as Councillor Hildebrand said, it's a heritage item in a place that doesn't have too many things of that nature. I am concerned about the fragmentation of the wetlands. That's a life and death issue for several species, and biodiversity demands that there be something. The other thing that I'm disturbed about is the speed that traffic goes on our roads and in the area. That's one safe spot for people to walk and to ride their bicycles. And I saw a group there from a nursing home or retirement residence in their wheelchairs the other day. I'm also concerned about the traffic that's going to come up when the Merritt Road is redeveloped, and the drainage issues that are going to come. But I think when you have a gym like the trail, with people so supportive of it and so willing to make proposals for things like pollinator corridors and that type of things, then I think we got to preserve that. So I'll be voting no tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? See, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in agreement with my fellow councillors. We did make a determination earlier this year that we were not going to have any crossings over the trail. And I don't agree that we should put a crossing over just to appease a developer. There's always more than one way to do something. And I would not support a trail crossing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions on this issue? Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, I'm nearly in disbelief that there's not an option really to do an under or over as far as a pass over the trail. So I'm having a hard time digesting that that's just not an option. But no, I'm not supportive of crossing. So there does have to be another way, but it's not, it's just vehicular traffic and having people riding their bicycles or walking and having their earbuds in or whatever they're doing and not paying attention. To Councillor Olson's point, people are driving faster and faster and not paying attention, and people walking might be texting. It's just a recipe for an accident, and also to the preservation of that trail is very important. So no, I won't be in favor of this either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Corr.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, through the CEO, how many more times do we have to vote on this? I think this is the third time we have been voting on this, and when does this stop?
Mr. CAO.
Well, that's sort of a loaded question. The first time we voted on this was all but procedurally incorrect. This matter was brought forth by councilors, outside the normal process. Last time it was up, you asked for this report. We have written this report, but you're abundantly clear. We did want to put it's extremely impractical, unfortunately, to build, as it turns out, to build over or under the trail. That would have, I was hopeful that would be a solution too. At any rate, you've been clear here. That being said, when we get to the development process, I can't state what the developer will or won't attempt to proceed with, and what proceedings may result from that. So from the staff, this is the last time. That said, this is our earnest advice to you, and there are some reasons for it. And normally someone would ask why, because we certainly don't like publicly producing reports that we know are not going to be popular and are in opposition to your clear default preferences. So for us to do that, there must be a good reason. I'll leave that there. If any of you wish to ask why, Director Weems will be happy to reply. And if not, I think you've been abundantly clear and we'll simply take your direction. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. CEO. Councillor Corr.
Thank you, and can we just have the vote?
Okay, that's great. If you don't mind, I'd like to make a little comment. That comment is, I've stated before that my opposition of going through a wetland, I don't think it's, I think it's too steep a price to be paid. Obviously, it's a minority feeling here. So, and we will indeed call the vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. If it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to advise council that if any councillor wished, they could simply request a motion to divide, and then we could deal with each paragraph individually. And what that might do is allow council to receive the report simply just for information. The first paragraph of the resolution is simply just to receive for information. All I would need is a request to divide. Otherwise, I can call the vote on the full resolution to council's desires.
Is there a request to divide? Not seeing one. Oh, Councillor Wink.
I don't have a problem in dividing the first paragraph from the rest. The staff did provide a report to us for information purposes, and I believe that it behooves us to accept that report for the record, and then the other two can go together, and we can vote no on that as we see fit.
Okay, Councillor, you've heard Councillor Wink's suggestion. Is there anyone who doesn't go with those suggestions? Then, Madam Clerk, I suggest we follow them.
Yes, thank you. I will use the same mover and seconder. And the first portion of the resolution to be voted on is, be it resolved that council receive report 2021-0200 overpass, underpass, or tunnel crossing over Steve Bauer Trail for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion.
Any further questions or comments? Not seeing any.
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrandt,
Yes.
Counselor Kaur,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
Counselor Stewart,
Yes.
Counselor Wink,
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, and that does carry. That brings us to the latter half of the resolution, which is and that council allow an exemption to its motion restricting road crossings over the Steve Bauer Trail by adopting option 1, detailed in the report 2021-0168, which contemplates one at-grade road crossing with pedestrian access over the Steve Bauer Trail to connect to the proposed Kunda Park Phase 4 subdivision and proposed Forest Park subdivision, and that council directs staff to prepare the bylaw to dedicate that area of Steve Bauer Trail for a proposed crossing as the public road allowance for council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor, if there's any further debate.
Any further questions, comments, statements? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And for this, we'll start with Counselor Hildebrandt.
No.
Counselor Kaur.
No.
Counselor Olson.
No.
Counselor Stewart.
No.
Counselor Wink.
No.
Counselor Hahn.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And it is defeated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our next item on the agenda, and I have a motion put forth by Counselor Hahn, seconded by Counselor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2021-0191, Chief Administrative Officer Performance Review Policy, and that Council approve the Chief Administrative Officer Performance Review Policy number S600-14, and that Council approve option blank as the CAO Performance Evaluation Review form. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you for discussions.
Okay. Any discussion, comments on this item? And I see we have the Director of our Resource Person, Human Resources, Bianna Langora on the screen now. Thank you for joining us, Bianna. Anyway, any questions, comments? Don't see any. I see Councillor Hildebrandt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to start with something. So with regards to the evaluation process, like we were advised by Mr. Love tonight, that we need to start with one template, and possibly after we go through the process, we'll revise the template. So my proposal would be, if I was selecting a template, I would select the last one, which is template 3.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
3, Mr. Mayor, is Councillor Hildebrandt moving that the motion be amended to insert option number 3?
Councillor?
No, I'm just making that's my comment.
Oh, okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay, thank you,
At this
Councillor.
point,
Okay, Councillor Wink.
I concur with Councillor Hildebrandt on option or template 3.
Thank you. Any other comment? Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, I think it was Councillor Hildebrandt earlier that had mentioned 360. If I had my druthers, I would always go with a 360 review because it's in totality. But failing that we don't have that at our hands to vote on, then I would pick option 3 then.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? If I may, my only comment is for doing a performance review, I honestly don't know if we have to, if we need 10 or 12 pages, whatever that is, to put forward a realistic review of a CAO or a member of SLT's performance. Telling you the truth, so I will not. If we put a motion forward, I won't be voting for option 3. Thank you, Councillor Wink. I believe you had your hand up.
Yeah. So with response to that, then what would your choice of template be, then, Mayor?
I would go with option 1.
Okay. As far as when the performance review is going to be done, my preference would be, sorry to say this, Mr. Cribbs, but I know you've got an anniversary date, and the last couple of years it's been It's been in July, but I think to have a wholesome assessment, we should be looking at a full calendar year so we can look at the completion of all the goals and priorities that have been put forward, not just half a year and then guessing what might get done in the next half of the year.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think I would prefer item number 1, just because if you do an assessment of somebody, if you can't do it on one piece of paper or 2 pieces of paper, then you've probably got more problems than you realize. So, and probably with yourself. So, I would prefer something that's short and it'll be more pointed and focused. And the object of performance review is to change performance, and I prefer something that had a little more focus than a large number of pages.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Stewart.
I think option 3 is the best one. It gives a breakdown of every aspect of it, you know, where someone may score high in a number of things, but then, you know, and that can always be balanced with something where, you know, it's just average or below average. And I think it gives you a more robust picture. So I'm in favor of option 3.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? And we will turn to the clerk. Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What I'm hearing is potentially an amendment that the motion be amended to insert option number 3. And I don't know if council does want to insert and that the CAO performance review occur in blank annually. I don't know if Councillor Wink was thinking of a certain month, if that was December or January or...
Councillor Wink?
I would say by year end. So the review, just like Mr. Cribbs had said today that he's in the process, it's December now, and doing the reviews for the SLT, I think that would fit the same with us and his review. So.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you. I've changed that to say, and that the CAO performance review occur by year end annually. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, knowing that next year is the election, and I believe next year, I think it happens a little bit earlier, just wanted to know how that would fit in, I guess, so that we can ensure that this council has an opportunity to do the review. Is that fine?
Councillor Wink, it's your idea. Do you want to, and obviously next year is an election year.
Yeah, none of us might be here. So.
Exactly.
So then Mr. Cribbs would be writing his own review.
Well, I see Brianna has her hand up. Brianna, some advice for us perhaps?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the policy does speak to this. It says that in an election year that you guys would do it within no less than 90 days prior to the election day. So there would be different rules in an election year to make sure that you guys do get an opportunity to evaluate the CAO.
Okay. So it looks like we're back to the original then. Councillor Wink?
Now, do you know what? I agree with what Brianna is saying and what Councillor Hahn is saying, that this council should be doing the review, and I would still stick with year end with the proviso of an election year, as Ms. Langor had indicated.
Okay, great. Can you put that in the motion, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I'm just adding to the end of that, subject to an election year pursuant to the Town of Pelham policy number, I think it was S614. I'll make sure that we have that correctly noted.
Excellent. Any Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't see that it's necessary to have the review at year end. A year is a year. It doesn't matter which 12 months it covers. And I'm good with the anniversary date. And we're working on a strategic plan of things that need to get done. And those things don't all wind up at the end of the year. So if something is done, is completed in March and the anniversary date is in July, then it's reported at that time and the progress is reported at that time. I don't see that it needs to be, piled on at year end because there always seems to be so much stuff happening then. Thank you.
Councillor Wink, any comment on that or not?
Yeah, I'm sorry I have to disagree with that. I've worked in organizations, and yeah, it's a little bit of extra work for all involved. But I know in my former work world, everything was done at year end.
Okay.
And it worked well.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors have a preference? Anniversary, which would mean it stays in July, or would you like to see it move to year end except during an election year? Councillor Corr.
Yes, Mayor, through you, I agree with Councillor Wink. I've been in a business where at the end of the year, we evaluate our employees so we could start off the new year on a positive note. So we know exactly what direction we're going into. So I will be supporting the end of the year and also number 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, should we split that?
It's up to council. If you wish to consider each amendment separately and individually, I'm happy to do that.
Anyone object if we vote on them individually? I don't see any hands, Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you. So the first would be for the amendment is that the motion be amended to insert option number 3. And I do just need a mover and a seconder for this.
Mover and seconder. Mover is Councillor Corr. Seconder is Councillor Hildebrand.
I do have Councillor Corr and Councillor Hildebrand. And the vote will begin with Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Okay.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that does carry. And that brings us to our second amendment. And it's that the motion be amended to include and that the CAO performance review occur by year end annually, except in an election year pursuant to the Town of Pelham Policy S600 2014. And I do need a mover and a seconder for that as
Mover
well.
and a seconder, please. The Councillor Wink and Councillor Corr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And then for this vote, it will begin with Councillor Olson.
No.
Councillor Stewart.
No.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
And that does carry. That brings us to our main motion as amended. Mr. Mayor, to you for any further debate.
Okay, so any further debate on the motion as amended? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do need a mover and a seconder for this.
Oh, sorry. Yep, a mover and a seconder. Councillor Corr and Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this vote is going to begin with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Corr.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
No.
Mayor Junkin.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. And Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our last staff report for the evening. And that is I do have a motion moved by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2021-0198 options and implications for reducing hours of car wash operation for information, and that Council direct staff to undertake no further action in relation to reducing the hours and operations of commercial car washes or other noise-generating business in the town of Pelham. To you, Mr. Mayor, for debate.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On this item, any questions, debate, statements? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And this vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that does carry. Mr. Mayor, that brings us to our presentation of bylaws and for consideration, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1. Bylaw number 4403-2021, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended for lands located at 588 Chandler Road, south of Chandler Road, lying east of Cream Street, legally described as concession 13 and part of lot 11 in the town of Pelham, from the agricultural 25A25 zone and light industrial 25 M1-25 zone to agricultural 309A309 and agricultural 310A310 zones. JJ Savon file number AM06-2021. Number 2, bylaw 4404-2021, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 1136-1987 as amended for lands located within the River Estate Phase 2 subdivision with the site-specific residential multiple 1287 RM1287 zone, and for lands located within Saffron Meadows Phase 1 and 2 subdivisions with the site-specific residential multiple 1268 RM1268 zone, Town of Pelham, file number AM-05-2021, bylaw number 4405-2021, being bylaw to exempt blocks 39, 40, 41, 42 on Plan 59M-471, municipally known as 401, 405, 409 Calgary Avenue, and 78, 80, 84, 86, 88, 96, 98, 100 Summerside Boulevard, and 160 and 161 Susan Drive from Part Lot Control, River Estate Phase 2 Subdivision, River Realty Development, 1976, Inc., file number PLC 05-2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for debate.
Okay. On any of these items read by the clerk, is there questions or debate on any of them? I see none. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That carries. To you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring to your next item, which is motions. And we do have a motion listed on the agenda, which is moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt, with respect to parking at the MCC. Councillor Stewart, would you like to read your motion into the record?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Okay. Whereas the town of Pelham is committed to building strong communities and cultural assets. And whereas the Council for the Town of Pelham values the Meridian Community Center, the MCC, and the services it offers the residents. And whereas the Council for the Town of Pelham is aware of a parking shortage at the MCC, which at times may cause hardships for patrons. And whereas the Council for the Town of Pelham acknowledges the Town of Pelham has undertaken a parking study with respect to reviewing the parking needs of the town. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Pelham Council direct staff to research potential temporary parking solutions for the MCC, including potentially using town-owned lands adjacent to the MCC for temporary parking. And that council directs staff to research and explore parking enforcement options to ensure patrons of the MCC are using the provided parking, and that options presented to council shall include potentially amending the town's parking bylaw, and that council directs staff to report back by January 24th, 2022. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Obviously, it's your motion. Would you, anything to add to it?
Probably nothing more than I've said before. We've known since before we were sworn into office that there was a severe parking shortage at the MCC. The parking study is to address the MCC plus all the other shortfalls in residential parking. But at this time, with the MCC being so busy and pretty much running at full capacity, there is a serious shortfall in parking. And then with all the development going in, just, you know, back to back with the current parking lot, it doesn't matter, you know, what we say or do. People that are going to move into those places are going to be looking for extra parking, and they're going to be taking up some of our parking. And so along with increasing the parking capacity, we need to have measures in place to enforce the parking that it is for the MCC patrons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Hildebrand, you seconded the motion. Any comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. And my comment is going to be a question because it comes back to the Director of Planning. Do we have any idea whether the parking lot study will be done at the same time when we're asking for this study or report to come back to council for this parking lot? Because obviously the parking study is the complement that we need to make the right decision as councillors.
Director of Planning, Ms. Weens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I have been advised by the consultants that we're expected to receive first draft of the parking study report before the end of this year. So I'm hopeful that we will have something by December 31st.
Thank you. That's good news.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from any other councillors on the motion? Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, I mean, to do the earthworks and, you know, do that now with the granite and the gravel, so it can be parked on during the winter, and then in the spring we can tackle the actual paving. So in other words, instead of doing things twice, it would just be a matter of doing the prep work that you would be doing anyhow, and then the same company, so that there's no discrepancy about it not being done the way they wanted it. It would be the same company then would do the actual paving that would need to be done in the spring anyhow in this area. That way it's something we're going to do anyhow. It's just doing it now so that during the winter months it can be used from a gravel standpoint and then paved in the spring. So that's something we can look at doing.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Stewart, correct us please, or enlighten me. When you say temporary parking, so you're not thinking of just using a gravel lot until we see what the parking study says, or maybe in fact what we are going to do with the who buys on the east end of the west side of Rice Road. You're actually thinking this temporary parking solutions, you're actually thinking of paving it then? Is that your idea?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. We all know what the MCC part of the parking study is going to say. We all know there is a shortfall. What I'm talking about was getting some, you know, a gravel, well, we have set aside land. So getting it leveled and getting some gravel down so it's functional during the winter. And then next year, making it a more permanent solution. And if it can't be made more permanent next year, there is a placeholder in the budget for the following year for the parking lot to be done. But we need to get the parking increased, whether it's just with gravel for now, or as Councillor Hahn suggested, getting a serious base down and having it ready. I'm not stuck on any one idea. The idea that I'm stuck on is that we need to increase the parking as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. And let's talk to Director of Planning, Ms. Weens. So this temporary parking lot, then that will be going on the north side of the MCC then. Is that correct? On the land that was originally designated as Wardenoff property? Is that where this is going?
No.
Mr. Mayor, through you, I believe it's on the land that that Councillor Stewart's thinking about, is the land that the town hasn't sold on the south side of the MCC, north of Summerside, on the corner of Summersides and Rice.
Okay. Is that indeed where it's going? Your idea then, Councillor Stewart? That's the parcel? Okay.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's where it would be. That's the land that this council has taken off the market to increase the parking.
I see. And Ms. Weens, is that is exactly the what's happened with that piece of land, that we have decided to take it off the market, and it's eventually going to be parking anyway? Is that where we're headed?
Mr. Mayor, through you, that's a decision that council needs to make. Council did not sell that portion of land. And so, when we get the results of the parking study, it will hopefully inform us, in terms of the amount of parking that might be needed to augment the MCC. And then we can make a determination as to how much land we need for parking and how much land we could potentially still sell.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. I didn't think we had made that. I know we had put it aside, but we haven't really. This will actually be making the decision then to turn it into parking then? Is that how we could read that?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I think the parking study will help inform council's decision, whatever that may be.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Thanks. Councillor Olson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Recreation. How many more tournaments, the large tournaments, do we have this year before the ice goes out?
Ms. Van Ravensway?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We do have 3 large tournaments coming in. We have the Silver Stick between Christmas and New Year's, the International Silver Stick the beginning of January, as well as the showcase for the junior team towards the end of February. We also have basketball tournaments that will start up as well in the spring. So, and obviously home show and art festival and so forth.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Councillor.
Now to the Director again, through you, Mr. Mayor. Now, how the new stipulations where you have to be there 15 minutes before your game and leave 15 minutes after, did that have any effect on the parking? It's discouraging spectators.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the new instructions, it actually relates to change rooms only. The facility is still at full capacity. It's only in limited spaces that the 15 minutes. So for instance, someone can come into the building, an hour ahead of time, 2 hours, whatever. Although they can only be in the change room for 15 minutes. That is what the instruction is recommending.
Okay. And through you again, Mr. Mayor, we used shuttle buses at one time, did we not? School buses from,
Yes.
to get to take care of the crowds and the parking?
Ms.
Through
Van
you,
Rensburg?
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Absolutely, we would be shuttling people from the, well, actually from the old arena, Hay Street Arena, which we don't own anymore, as well as, you know, municipal parking downtown.
Thank you. Counselor?
So there are options to, in a surge type situation, there are options for parking and transportation.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, it has been cut back. So we would be using the municipal parking downtown, and we would have to make arrangements for private lots if we're able to use them.
Counselor? If I can ask another question, either of the seconder mover. Including potentially using town-owned lands adjacent to the MCC for temporary parking. So where, if we are indeed going to be paving this, and perhaps we have to have the Director of Public Works, if we're going to be paving this, then obviously we are going to have to put the right base down and what have you. So I guess the question is, the levy right now is 4.7. We found out that there's no money left in the snow budget. So I guess the first question is, where is this money coming from? And two, to the Director of Public Works, would you be comfortable, and I hate putting you on the spot, telling us what you think the what's the cost of this project going to be if indeed we're looking to pave it? So then we have to put down the, it's not just going to be a gravel now, if we're going to think of paving it, it's going to be the full 9 yards going down, I don't know how many inches, and doing the correct job on it. Any idea, or have we had a quote in the past, or if you could help out on that.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there was some engineering work done preliminary on the lands in question here, and the price tag I think 2 years ago was about $850,000 to do a proper parking area. That includes stormwater management, full pavement reconstruction or construction and curbing. So that's the estimate that we have right now. That's the most recent data that we have.
Okay, thank you. So then I guess my question, okay, great. Councillor Stewart, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. Okay, so that's a lot of money, and that's been planned for down the line in 2023. Okay, so my question, going back to my initial thoughts, were what would it take to get it graded and get enough gravel down to make it useful until the time that we can spend the money to put a proper parking lot in place?
To the Director?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there need to be some more engineering done on that. Just by visual look at the site, it looks low. You're not going to fill all that with stone. Winter is not a great time to do earth moving. Contractors normally suspend operations for winter months, do that in better weather. My guess is that there would be some topsoil stripping as well as import of fill material. And then you would place 16 inches to 20 inches of granular for the parking lot base, but that would be over top of compacted earth fill, which needs to be done in better weather. You can't do that in winter conditions. You get freezing conditions, and that causes settlements down the road. So you want to make sure that you do that work in good weather. That's my recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kaur?
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of our term, we voted down a temporary parking solution, and if I'm not mistaken, it was about $85,000. and it was especially for the Silver Stick tournament. My question is with the new complex on the north end of the parking lot, how did we determine that none of those residents will be using our parking lot? You know, so I'm looking at 12 o'clock at night. There shouldn't be any cars in that parking lot, if I'm not mistaken, because we close at 11. So if there's 10 or 12 cars there, there obviously are people who live in those new residents north of the parking lot. Do we have a way of handling the people are not using our parking lot, but using it for personal use?
Should I go to the CAO or do I go Director of Planning? Ms. Weems?
Mr. Mayor, through you, if council wants to enforce kind of parking in the MCC, then it would need to be signed as MCC parking only. And then you would have bylaw enforcement staff out after hours enforcing that with tickets.
Councillor Court?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, so we don't have, 10 or 12 parking spots being not being used for MCC use.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes, I think it's a good solution. In the city of Welland, they do exactly the same thing, and I was a culprit and got a $20 or $25 ticket for using the parking lot at the arena, even when there was no cars in there during the daytime. So they caught me with one of their signs, which is another way they were raising revenue. Maybe it could help pay for the parking lot.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? I know that I got to be honest, with a levy of 4.7 and what we've heard from the director, I just don't understand where the money's going to come from. And I certainly don't want to increase the levy. So I think this may be a little premature. I know we've gone 4 years without sufficient parking, but until this had a proper place in the budget, I'm not going to vote for it. I can't support the motion. Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have the
He's muted.
Oh, you're breaking up, Councillor. Want to try that again?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like the treasurer to give us her comments with regards to where might some money come from.
Okay, excellent. Ms. Quillen Murphy, do you have a magic back pocket?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I wish I did, but I don't. It comes from the tax levy. That's the only place it can come from. Right now, we have the 2022 capital budget that was proposed to council, and it will be approved on December 20th. And the parking lot is not in there. So if there are extra funds that people want to spend on parking or temporary parking, something else on the capital list will have to come off because that is the total budget that we can spend on capital without incurring debt. The reserves, we don't have any other money from the reserves right now. So if you want it done in 2020, something has to come off the list. Or we can, wait till the 2023 budget and look how it could be incorporated in that budget after we receive the parking lot report, which will inform us on what we need to do.
Okay, thank you for that. There is no
money right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor to the treasurer, is there any opportunity whatsoever with regards to any grant opportunities? I know at one point in time, it was when we were asked probably close to a year ago for our long wish list of things that we asked, for the library and things as long as your arm. I think that might have been on there. So is it still on a wish list of sorts, waiting to get an answer, or can it be added to, I mean, you're aware of all the grants that are out there. Is there an opportunity that might exist?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did have it on one grant and the grant was not approved. And right now, the grants that are out there that are outstanding does not include a parking lot. They're very specific that a parking lot is not included in that. But we will keep looking though. We always do.
And what if it's in the area of the, more environmentally sustainable type parking, where, the drainage and the different features that are out there now with regards to water collection and preservation and those kinds of things, semi-permeable surfaces, et cetera, and maybe taking that kind of more environmental angle, which we should be doing anyhow, and seeing if there might be some grant opportunities there.
Yeah, well, we're always looking for grant opportunities, and I am aware of, the outstanding capital items that we have on our list. So definitely we will keep looking for that.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Excuse me. Councilor Wink.
So, reading the motion, the crux of the matter is two things. We're just looking at a staff report with respect to parking solutions. We're not approving parking solutions today. And the other one is the parking enforcement, which is also asking for a staff report. So I understand what you're saying, Mayor, but it's just we're asking for staff reports. There's no solutions being offered at with this particular motion. The question that I would have through you to Mr. Mayor to the CAO, the date of January 24th, is that doable?
To the CAO, please.
Late last week, His Worship approved, so here it is, world, a special meeting of council for January the 17th. That's the Monday prior to that. The moment it's held for planning matters, but we have no planning matters scheduled. And we will be convening a special meeting of council that night to address Niagara Regional Transit and the future of the Pelham Library. So those are two gargantuan, and if I may describe them as legacy issues for this council to consider. The agenda and the report would have to be published the next day to meet our own published deadlines, because this meeting would be 7 days later. The quality of the report we could put together in that time would not be high. And I think it deserves better than, it's clearly important, self-evidently important to the community and important to each of you. So we'd certainly prefer the first meeting in February. I don't recall what that is offhand, although I do have a computer, I can figure that out.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's February 7th.
February 7th.
Faster than I am. February 7th would be better, but if the 24th is your wish, I can't promise the same usual high quality, but we will comply.
So
go ahead, Councillor.
Yes. So what we're hearing is we wouldn't be able to install temporary parking anyway during the winter. I don't have a problem in making an amendment to the motion for staff report to come back to us by February 7th.
Councillor Stewart? No, you're on mute, ma'am.
No, that would be fine.
Okay, Councillor Hildebrand?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Wink, are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Olson has his hand up.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO. And how would the parking report come to council? Would that come separately or?
Well, sir, I believe it'll be part of a regular council agenda. So it'll just be in your council package.
So what I mean by separately is it would be not part of the report, this report to council, but it'd be separate.
Councillor Olson is referencing the parking study that's coming, and then
very
as
good.
opposed to the other one?
Well, planning, my expectation is that Director Weens herself writes at least some sort of wraparound report around the, introducing the parking report, but obviously it will be the star of the show. And we, depending on, we haven't seen the document yet, so I can't really comment, but we may throw in some recommendations or just simply do a wraparound report, depending what actual day we get it, because obviously we're trying to get in front of you as fast as we can. Self-evidently, it's late and overdue, and a lot of things are waiting on it. So again, the quality of her report will vary with the amount of time she has, but at a minimum, she'll throw some concepts around it, and you'll have that report. Sounds like early January. It will be doable if we're going to get it in December.
Yeah. Ms. Weens, do you concur with that assessment?
Mr. Mayor, through you, yeah, I would anticipate that, there would be the parking report, and we would have the consultants available to do a short presentation to council, and there would be the opportunity for, perhaps questions and answers with the consultant. But there would be some kind of staff report to, accept the report, and then for staff then to come back with programs on how to implement the recommendations of that report without, knowing what that report's going to say or what it's going to recommend. But the terms of reference for that study were to look at options to, increase the parking supply, type parking management opportunities for managing the parking supply in downtown Fonthill, Fenwick, and Ridgeville. So I'm sure it's going to have a number of options. It was also to look at the parking standards in the zoning bylaw and comment as to whether or not those are appropriate or not, and then have recommendations with respect to that. So it is a multifaceted report that's looking at downtown Fonthill, Fenwick, Ridgeville, and of course the MCC, and looking at what we can do to increase parking supply, through various parking management programs and techniques.
Great. Thank you for that overview. Thank you. Any other questions on the debate on the motion as it stands? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If council is ready for the vote, it begins with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Mayor Duncan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does carry. Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to our next agenda item, which is the presentation by Councillor Hildebrandt. Councillor Hildebrandt, we do have some items that you wished for us to share our screen, so I'd ask that Ms. Miller just have her screen ready to share whenever you need that to be shared. To you, Mr. Councillor Hildebrandt.
Thank you very much. Basically, I wanted to provide a year-end update of the work that the Utility Sustainability Committee has done over the last 3 years. So at this time, I know that this is the last item on the agenda, and everybody's always happy to, when the mayor hammers the gavel down, says the end of the meeting. So at this point, if there's questions, I'd be glad to answer questions. And if not, you have the report before you. I've prepared as much information as I can. I'll be glad to answer any questions. And that will be my concluding remarks for the evening.
Excellent. Oh, so we're not sharing the screen or anything?
It sounds like Councillor Hildebrandt is satisfied that we don't need to share the screen. All of the attachments that we were planning to share were a part of the agenda, so council
Okay.
did have them in advance.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, everything that we've got in the attachment in the report that was prepared by our clerk is available. I can share any screen you want or any details you want, but I think it's a pretty fulsome report for everyone. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew where we were and where we were headed. I'm so excited that every year we're making progress towards energy saving and the amount of commitment that the town has to doing these projects. The fact is, we did start with the MCC, which was the biggest energy user, and street lights are on the agenda. And the next step, the biggest utility user after that was the town hall and Tice Road. They're actually both $18,000 a year right now in 2020. So we're starting on the town hall. The project has been funded through a grant and some money from the IT department, and that's going to drop their utility costs by conservatively 25 to 30%, but it's probably going to be better than that. So every year we're increasing the savings, and the LED lights would make a huge difference in our utility bills. So that's basically my update for today.
All right, thank you, Councillor. I've seen the report. Is there any questions about any aspect of it? I don't see Councillor Wink. I hope he, there he is. Okay, Councillor, thanks. There we go. Okay, so is there any questions for the councillor on pertaining to the sustainability committee, the works, any of the plans they got coming up?
I should just make one final comment.
Yep,
one
go ahead.
Project that I've been working on with my fellow engineer, Gordon Marasco, is the rate classification for the town of Fond Hill, and it will translate into Pelham. We've been working on that since 2016, and we're still working on it. In August, we were promised by the energy minister that he would direct Hydro One to get back to us in the fall, and fall is quickly going away. And again, Hydro One continues to change members of their committee, and we're on the agenda again, I think, for Roma to give our presentation to the energy minister. And that will be the third time I think we've addressed the energy minister.
Very good. And I imagine in this age and day and age of computers, it must seem like your good buddy Gord is right beside you instead of being, I believe you said he moved to Guelph, did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
He did move to Guelph, but he's still working diligently on this project with me.
Excellent. Good to hear that. Councillor Corr?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not a bright guy, I was told that. Could you, Councillor Hillebrand, could you just tell us what's your estimate of what we have saved, or what your committee and Gordon that have saved this great community on the hydro bill?
Oh, I can't even tell you. I never totaled up the amounts because we were just working. The one chart basically tells you where we started out. At the MCC, we had a draft budget originally from the design people of 521, 522. So over $500,000. Within the first year, because of the rate classification we achieved and the money back we got because we got a new rate, we saved variance to budget that year was $227,000, which was significant. So,
and I want to thank you and the great work you have done. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a real pleasure. That's one of the reasons I ran for council.
Excellent. Any other questions for the councillor? And it is not only significant, but indeed remarkable, the savings your committee has got this town. We appreciate that very much, councillor.
The operating staff have done an amazing job of actually doing the work, of getting the lights turned off and all those things. They are committed to seeing that graph every week and monitoring how we're doing, which is part of the success of this committee.
Excellent. Good to hear that. Thank you. Like you say, without staff buy-in, the program doesn't work. So it's good to see you've got everybody on side. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, we will call the vote. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation from Councillor Hildebrandt with respect to the Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee. This vote begins with Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrandt?
Yes.
Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and that carries. You do have a motion put forth by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Kaur. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being a bylaw number 4406, 2021, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 6th day of December, 2021. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any debate.
Any questions or debate on this? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The vote begins with Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that does carry. Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kaur, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting of council, being December 20th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any debate.
I think we can call the vote.
Okie dokie. It's Councillor Hildebrandt.
Yes.
Councillor Kaur.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, it is 8:53 and you can gavel out your meeting.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.
Good meeting, Holly.